Think you know American geography? Think again. I'm about to shatter 50 beliefs you've held your entire life. From the city where you drive south to enter Canada, to the state that exists in two hemispheres at once. Prepare to have your mind completely blown by facts that seem impossible but are absolutely true. Let's kick things off at number 50, with something that'll make you question everything. Everyone thinks Detroit is one of the northernmost major cities in America. Makes sense, right? It's practically touching Canada. But here's where things get weird. Detroit actually sits south of a major Canadian city. I'm talking about Windsor, Canada. When you cross from Detroit into Windsor, you're actually driving south to enter Canada. Let that sink in for a moment. South to Canada. The border crossing there runs in a way that completely contradicts what your brain tells you should be happening. Moving to number 49, and this one sounds absolutely impossible. Alaska is simultaneously the westernmost state in America and the easternmost state. How can one place be both? Is this some kind of geographical paradox? Well, it's real, and the explanation is going to blow your mind right open. The Aleutian Islands, that chain stretching from Alaska, actually cross the 180-degree meridian. That's the line where east meets west on our planet. So technically, Alaska has land in both the western hemisphere and the eastern hemisphere. One state, two hemispheres. Geography just broke the rules. At number 48, let's talk about the Pacific Ocean. Quick question. The Pacific is west of the United States, right? Everyone knows that. West Coast, Pacific Ocean. It's literally in the name, except from certain parts of Alaska. This basic fact completely falls apart in the most confusing way possible. From specific locations in Alaska, you'd actually have to travel east to reach the western portions of the Pacific Ocean, east to reach the west. The Aleutian Islands curve so far out that they wrap around, making direction itself seem like a suggestion rather than a rule. Geography is already getting wild. Coming in at number 47, here's something that shocks almost everyone. Ask anyone what the southernmost state is, and they'll confidently say Florida. Key West, the southernmost point in America. It's famous, it's on postcards, it's common knowledge, except it's completely, totally, absolutely wrong in every way. Hawaii's Kala, also called South Point, is the true southernmost point in the United States. It sits at 18.9 degrees north latitude. Key West, that's at 24.5 degrees north. Florida isn't even close. Hawaii beats Florida by over 600 miles. Everything you thought you knew just collapsed. Number 46 is interesting because it's actually true, but most people get a crucial detail wrong. Mount Whitney is indeed the highest point in the continental United States at 14,505 feet. That part's correct, but ask someone where Mount Whitney is located, and watch the confusion unfold across their face right now. Most people guess Colorado, home of the Rockies and mountain majesty. Wrong, Mount Whitney is in California. California, the state people associate with beaches and Hollywood, has the highest peak in the lower 48. The tallest point between Canada and Mexico isn't where anyone expects it to be. At number 45, let's destroy another assumption. The Rio Grande forms the entire border between Texas and Mexico. It's a massive river. Texas has a massive border. They must match up completely. This seems logical. It seems obvious. It's also nowhere near the truth, and the reality is surprising. The Rio Grande only forms about half of the Texas-Mexico border. Texas shares 1,054 miles of border with Mexico, but the river accounts for roughly 600 to 700 miles. The rest, land borders with markers and fences. The iconic river doesn't go nearly as far as everyone thinks. Number 44 brings us to Virginia, and this misconception is extremely common. Virginia is entirely on the Atlantic coast. It's an East Coast state, ocean state, colonial port state. The coastline defines it, except Virginia stretches much, much farther than the coast, and most people have no idea about this. Virginia extends all the way inland to the Appalachian Mountains. Only the eastern portion actually touches the Atlantic coast. The state goes from sea-level beaches to mountain peaks over 5,000 feet high. It's a coastal state and a mountain state, but everyone only remembers the first part. Coming in at number 43, Death Valley holds an intense reputation. The hottest place on Earth, right? The place where the planet shows no mercy. Well, Death Valley does hold the record for the hottest reliably recorded air temperature at 134 degrees Fahrenheit back in 1913. But hottest on Earth? Ground temperatures in other locations can actually get hotter. Satellite measurements have recorded surface temperatures in places like Iran's Lut Desert exceeding Death Valley's records. Death Valley owns the air temperature crown, but the ground beneath our feet can burn even hotter elsewhere. Hottest isn't always hottest. At number 42, here's the most common state capital mistake in America. New York City. Massive, iconic. The city's so important they named it twice. Obviously the capital of New York. It's the biggest city, the most famous city, the center of everything. So obviously it's the capital. Totally wrong. Albany is the capital of New York. Albany, a city most people couldn't find on a map. New York City has 8 million people, runs the world's economy, defines American culture. Albany has 100,000 people, and most people forget it exists. Yet Albany gets the title. Size means nothing for capitals. Number 41 gets technical, but it's fascinating. The Continental Divide runs along the peaks of the Rocky Mountains. Water on one side flows to the Atlantic, the other side flows to the Pacific. Makes sense that it follows the highest peaks, except the divide doesn't care about what makes sense. The Continental Divide follows the hydrological divide, which means it tracks where water naturally separates, not elevation. Sometimes it winds through valleys, completely ignoring nearby peaks. It's not about height, it's about where water wants to go. The divide takes the path it chooses, not the obvious one. Coming in at number 40, let's talk about Alaska's size. Look at any standard US map and Alaska looks absolutely enormous, possibly bigger than the entire continental United States. But here's the problem. Those maps lie to you. The Mercator projection distorts everything, and Alaska pays the price for being far north. Alaska is still massive, don't get me wrong. It's 2.5 times larger than Texas, but it's not as huge as maps make it appear. The Mercator projection exaggerates size near the poles, so Alaska looks inflated. It's still the biggest state by far, but not the monster maps show you. At number 39, the Great Lakes seem obviously American. They're right there in the middle of the country, defining the northern border, making America a Great Lakes nation. All 5 Great Lakes belong to the United States. Except that's not how international borders work, and Canada has something to say. 4 of the 5 Great Lakes are shared between the US and Canada. Superior, Huron, Erie, and Ontario all cross the border. Only Lake Michigan is entirely within US borders. Canada owns a huge chunk of the Great Lakes. They're not as American as they seem. Number 38 is actually true, but it's backwards from what most people think. Interstate highways with odd numbers run north to south. Even numbers run east to west. Simple pattern, easy to remember. Yet somehow millions of Americans have this reversed in their heads, making navigation a nightmare. If you remember odd equals north-south and even equals east-west, you'll never get lost on the interstate system again. But most people confidently believe the opposite, then wonder why they keep going the wrong direction. The system makes sense, we just learned it wrong somewhere along the way. At number 37, Chicago sits on Lake Michigan's west shore. Everyone knows this. Chicago faces east across the water. Except Chicago is actually on the southwest shore of Lake Michigan. The lake extends both north and east of the city. Chicago isn't where you think it is on the lake. Lake Michigan curves in a way that puts Chicago in the southwestern position. The city faces northeast across the water, not straight east. This matters more than you'd think for understanding Midwest geography. Even locals get this wrong. The lake's shape confuses everyone about direction and position. Coming in at number 36, the Mississippi River flows through St. Louis. That mighty river, the defining feature of America's heartland, runs right through one of the country's most historic cities. You can picture it, you can see it in your mind, and you're seeing something that doesn't actually exist. The Mississippi River forms St. Louis's eastern border, but never flows through the city itself. St. Louis is on the western bank. The river passes by, not through. It's right there, defining the city's edge, but never crossing into St. Louis proper. Through and along are very different things. At number 35, Pennsylvania seems like a landlocked state. It's surrounded by other states, sits inland, has no coastline whatsoever. Beach vacations in Pennsylvania? Impossible. Ocean access? None. Coastline measurements? Zero. Except Pennsylvania has something most people completely forget about when they think of coastline. Pennsylvania has 51 miles of coastline on Lake Erie. It's a Great Lakes state, which makes it a coastal state, not ocean coastline, but coastline nonetheless. Pennsylvania has beaches, ports, and maritime access. It's not landlocked at all, but everyone treats it like it is. Number 34 is about the Four Corners Monument, where you can stand in 4 states at once. Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico all meet at one perfect point. The monument marks this exact spot. Tourists visit, take photos, stand in multiple states, except they're not standing where they think they are. According to modern GPS measurements, the actual Four Corners point is about 1,807 feet away from the monument, nearly 6 football fields away. The monument isn't wrong by inches or feet. It's wrong by over 1/3 of a mile. Everyone who visited stood in the wrong spot entirely. At number 33, Boston is the easternmost major U.S. city. New England, Atlantic coast, eastern seaboard. Boston is as far east as America gets for major cities. This seems completely obvious based on geography and maps. But America extends much farther east than people realize, and Boston isn't even close. Eastport, Maine holds the title for the easternmost city in the continental United States. If we include territories, Puerto Rico stretches much farther east. Boston is eastern, sure, but it's not the eastern edge. Maine reaches out into the Atlantic, well beyond where Boston sits on the map. Coming in at number 32, Nevada equals desert. It's the desert state. Las Vegas, Death Valley nearby, endless sand and heat. The entire state is barren wasteland. This image is so strong that people can't imagine Nevada any other way. They'd never picture forests or mountains or snow. Big mistake. Northern Nevada has mountains, forests, and receives significant snowfall every winter. Lake Tahoe, one of America's premier ski destinations, straddles the Nevada-California border. Nevada has alpine wilderness, not just desert. The northern part of the state looks nothing like Las Vegas would suggest. At number 31, the Appalachian Mountains run along the east coast. Eastern Mountains, coastal ranges, right there by the ocean defining the eastern United States. They're the East Coast Mountains, except the Appalachians stretch much farther inland and cover way more territory than the coast alone. The Appalachian Mountains extend from Alabama all the way to Maine. They cut through inland states, mountain states, nowhere near the coast in many places. The Appalachians define far more than just the East Coast. They're eastern mountains, but they reach deep into the heart of America. Number 30 is straightforward. Texas is the largest U.S. state. Everything's bigger in Texas, including the state itself. It's massive, sprawling, taking up a huge chunk of the map. You could fit countries inside Texas. Obviously, it's the biggest state. Texans will tell you this constantly. They're wrong. Alaska is more than twice the size of Texas. Alaska measures 665,384 square miles. Texas measures 268,596 square miles. Alaska could swallow Texas twice and still have room left over. It's not even close. Texas is big, but Alaska is absurdly, incomprehensibly bigger than anything else. At number 29, here's something that changed and nobody noticed. The geographic center of the United States used to be in Kansas. Everyone learned this in school. Center of America equals Kansas. Simple fact. But then something happened in 1959 that moved the center hundreds of miles away. When Alaska and Hawaii joined as states, the geographic center shifted north to South Dakota, near the town of Belfourche. Adding those two massive new areas changed the entire calculation. The center of America moved, and Kansas lost its claim to fame. Geography shifted beneath everyone's feet. Coming in at number 28, Niagara Falls is the tallest waterfall in the United States. It's massive, powerful, world-famous, the ultimate American waterfall. Millions visit every year to see its incredible height. This has to be the tallest. How could anything be taller? The answer makes Niagara look tiny. Yosemite Falls measures 2,425 feet tall. Niagara Falls measures 167 feet. Yosemite is almost 16 times taller than Niagara. Niagara isn't even in the top 100 tallest waterfalls in America. It's powerful and wide, but tall? Not even close. Fame doesn't equal height at all. At number 27, this one is actually true, and it surprises everyone. Maine is the only state that borders just one other state. Alaska doesn't border any states. Missouri and Tennessee border 8. But Maine? Just New Hampshire. That's it. One border, done. Hard to believe, but absolutely correct. People often think Alaska should count as bordering only one state, but Alaska doesn't touch any states at all. Canada separates it completely. Maine stands alone as the single state with exactly one neighbor. It's unique in American geography. New Hampshire is Maine's only state-level border. Number 26 seems impossible when you first hear it. Los Angeles is farther west than Reno, Nevada. Los Angeles is on the Pacific coast, West Coast city. Reno is inland in Nevada. Obviously, LA is farther west. The map clearly shows this. except maps don't show what you think they do. Reno is actually about 75 miles farther west than Los Angeles. Nevada curves in a way that puts Reno's longitude west of LA's. Reno calls itself the biggest little city in the West, and it's more west than Los Angeles. The coastal city loses to the inland city. Direction isn't obvious. At number 25, the US-Canada border is the longest international border in the world. This one is actually true, stretching 5,525 miles, including Alaska. It's the longest border between any two countries on Earth. No walls, mostly friendly, and absurdly long. But most people underestimate just how massive it really is. That 5,525-mile border is longer than the distance from New York to London. It crosses forests, mountains, lakes, prairies, and tundra. Most of it is unmarked wilderness. You could walk the entire border and it would take months. It's not just the longest, it's incomprehensibly long by any standard. Coming in at number 24, Michigan has two peninsulas. This is true, but stunningly, many Americans don't know this. Michigan is split into the Upper Peninsula and the Lower Peninsula, separated by the Straits of Mackinac. You need a bridge or boat to drive from one part of Michigan to another. The Upper Peninsula is closer to Minnesota than to most of Michigan's major cities. It's culturally different, geographically isolated, yet somehow still Michigan. People from the UP have their own identity. Michigan is two places pretending to be one state. Most people never learn this exists. At number 23, the Mojave Desert is in Mexico. It sounds right. Big southwestern desert, hot and barren, must extend into Mexico. Deserts don't respect borders. The Mojave has to cross into Mexico. Everyone pictures it that way. But the Mojave stays firmly on one side of the border. The Mojave Desert is entirely within the United States, spread across California, Nevada, Utah, and Arizona. It never crosses into Mexico. People confuse it with the Sonoran Desert, which does extend into Mexico. Two different deserts, completely different ranges. The Mojave is all American, despite what you think. Number 22 is an embarrassing mistake that tons of people make. Nashville is in North Carolina. Tennessee and North Carolina are both southern states. They're right next to each other. The names sound similar. Nashville could be in either one, right? And somehow everyone picks the wrong state constantly. Nashville is in Tennessee. It's the capital of Tennessee. Country music capital of America, in Tennessee. Not North Carolina. Charlotte is in North Carolina. Raleigh is in North Carolina. Nashville belongs to Tennessee. This mistake is so common it's almost a running joke. Geography can be humbling sometimes. At number 21, everyone knows the US has 50 states. Count them, memorize them, 50 states in the Union. But the United States controls more territory than just those 50 states. 5 inhabited territories belong to America, and millions of American citizens live there right now under US sovereignty. Puerto Rico, US Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and Northern Mariana Islands are all US territories. Over 3 million American citizens live in these places. They're American soil, American people, American territories. Not states, but not foreign either. America is bigger than 50 states alone. Coming in at number 20, Oregon has no sales tax. This is true, and it shocks people from other states. You buy something for $10, you pay $10. No calculations, no surprises at checkout. Along with Montana, New Hampshire, and Delaware, Oregon lets you skip sales tax entirely. Many businesses outside Oregon don't realize this. They assume every state charges sales tax. Wrong. These 4 states built their economies differently. If you live in Oregon, you never mentally add tax to prices. What you see is what you pay. Simple. Most Americans can't imagine this. At number 19, the Grand Canyon is the deepest canyon in the United States. It's right in the name, grand. Massive, deep, impressive. Obviously the deepest. The Grand Canyon defines what canyons are. It's the standard. Nothing could be deeper. Except one canyon on the Idaho-Oregon border laughs at this assumption. Hell's Canyon measures 7,993 feet deep. The Grand Canyon reaches 6,093 feet. Hell's Canyon is almost 2,000 feet deeper, making it the deepest canyon in North America. The Grand Canyon is wider and more famous, but Hell's Canyon takes the crown for depth. Deeper exists in places nobody visits. Number 18 is about California weather. California is always sunny and warm. Perfect weather, constant sunshine, year shirts year-round. That's the California dream, the California promise. Beaches and sun forever. Northern California would like a word about this ridiculous oversimplification of their climate reality. Northern California gets significant rainfall. San Francisco is often foggy and cool. The Sierra Nevada mountains, including Lake Tahoe, get absolutely buried in snow every winter. California has ski resorts, rainstorms, and freezing temperatures. Southern California's weather isn't California's weather. The state has wildly different climates from north to south. At number 17, the Statue of Liberty is in New York. It's literally called the New York Harbor. New York's most famous landmark, Ellis Island, Statue of Liberty. New York icons. They have New York addresses. Except technically, legally, officially, the Statue of Liberty sits in New Jersey waters. Liberty Island itself is an enclave of New York, but it's completely surrounded by New Jersey's territorial waters. The Supreme Court settled this years ago. New York owns the island, New Jersey owns the water. If you swim around the statue, you're in New Jersey. Geography creates strange situations. Coming in at number 16, Crater Lake is a volcanic crater. It's called Crater Lake. The name tells you everything. A crater filled with water. Simple, except the name lies. Crater Lake isn't a crater at all. It's something much more dramatic, and the difference matters for understanding how it formed. Crater Lake is a volcanic caldera, formed when an entire volcano collapsed inward after a massive eruption. Craters are formed by explosions blasting material outward. Calderas form when the ground caves in from below. Completely different processes. The deepest lake in America isn't a crater. Names can be misleading. At number 15, Phoenix is hotter than Death Valley. Phoenix is brutally hot, consistently scorching triple-digit temperatures for months. Death Valley has that one record, but Phoenix lives in the heat year after year. Daily life in Phoenix is hotter than Death Valley. This feels true. It's not. Death Valley absolutely holds the temperature records, but Phoenix does experience longer sustained periods of extreme heat during summer months. Phoenix has more consecutive days over 100 degrees. Different kinds of hot, record hot versus consistently hot. Both are miserable, just in different ways. Heat has varieties. So, number 14 is nostalgic for many Americans. Route 66 still exists as a highway, the mother road, the main street of America. You can still drive Route 66 from Chicago to Los Angeles. Historic road trips follow it, except Route 66 was officially killed decades ago, and what remains are fragments. Route 66 was decommissioned in 1985 and replaced by the interstate highway system. Portions remain as historic routes and local roads, but the continuous highway doesn't exist anymore. You can't drive Route 66 as a single road. It's gone, replaced, relegated to history. The mother road died. At number 13, here's a common exaggeration. The United States bought Alaska from Russia for nothing. 7 cents an acre, a total steal, basically free. Russia practically gave Alaska away. The US robbed Russia blind. Seward's folly, they called it, because even a tiny price seemed too much. But nothing? Not quite. The US paid Russia $7.2 million in 1867. That's about $140 million in today's dollars. Still an incredible bargain for 663,000 square miles, but not nothing, not free, not a gift. Russia got paid real money, millions, just nowhere near what Alaska would eventually be worth to America. Coming in at number 12, Manhattan is the largest New York City borough. Manhattan is New York. It's the center, the core, the essential piece. Biggest buildings, most famous, most important. Obviously the largest borough in every way. But New York City is bigger and more complicated than just Manhattan. Queens is the largest NYC borough by area at 109 square miles versus Manhattan's 23 square miles. Brooklyn has the most people. Manhattan isn't even close to being the largest. It's the most famous, but fame doesn't equal size. The other boroughs dwarf Manhattan in space and population. At number 11, the Golden Gate Bridge is golden. It's in the name, Golden Gate. The bridge is golden-colored, shining in the California sun, iconic golden bridge, spanning Golden Gate. Except the Golden Gate Bridge isn't golden at all, and it never has been since the day it opened. The Golden Gate Bridge is painted international orange. That distinctive color was chosen for visibility in fog and for aesthetic reasons. Not gold, not yellow, but orange. The gate is golden, the bridge is orange. Names don't always match reality. Millions see it every year and still call it golden. Number 10 surprises most Americans. Volcanoes only exist in Hawaii and Alaska. Those are the volcano states. Nowhere else in America has active volcanoes. The continental US is volcano-free, stable, safe from eruptions, until you remember that the Pacific Northwest exists and things get concerning fast. Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980, killing 57 people. Mount Rainier towers over Seattle and Tacoma, an active volcano threatening millions. The entire Cascade Range is volcanic, and several peaks remain active today. Continental volcanoes exist, they're dangerous, and they could erupt again. Washington and Oregon remember. At number 9, the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meet at the Panama Canal. The canal connects them, joining two great oceans through human engineering. Where the canal flows, the oceans meet. This makes sense. The canal was built to join the oceans, except oceans meet at natural points, not man-made. The Atlantic and Pacific actually meet at Cape Horn in South America, where the continents end and the oceans naturally converge. The canal connects them artificially, but the true meeting point is where nature intended. At the southern tip of the continent, oceans don't meet at canals. Coming in at number 8, Lake Superior is the largest lake in the world. Superior by name, superior by size. The greatest of the Great Lakes. Massive, ancient, deep. Obviously the world's largest lake. Freshwater superiority, except there's a lake in Asia that makes Superior look small in comparison. Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake by surface area, but the Caspian Sea, technically a saltwater lake, is larger overall. Superior wins the freshwater category, but loses the overall title. Categories matter. Freshwater versus saltwater creates two different competitions. Superior is great, just not the greatest of everything. At number 7, Key West is the southernmost point of the United States. There's literally a marker saying so. Tourists photograph it constantly. The southernmost point in the continental USA. Famous landmark. Except even within the continental United States, Key West isn't technically the southernmost point at all. Ballast Key, south of Key West, is technically the southernmost point of the continental United States, but overall, Calais in Hawaii claims the true southernmost title at 18.9 degrees north latitude. Key West is famous, but not the furthest south. Fame and facts split apart once again. Number 6 is actually true. California is the most populous state with about 39 million people, but many Americans think Texas or New York holds this title. California's population exceeds the entire population of Canada. One state houses more people than many countries. California's population dominance surprises people constantly. California has more people than the 21 smallest states combined. Almost 1 in 8 Americans lives in California. The state's population shapes national politics, culture, and economy. Texas is second with 30 million. New York has 19 million. California's population lead is massive and growing. At number 5, this one became a political joke, but it's actually true. You can see Russia from Alaska. Sarah Palin was mocked for this statement. It became a punchline. Everyone laughed. Except she was technically correct, even if her larger point was questionable. Geography doesn't care about politics. From Little Diomede Island in Alaska, Big Diomede Island in Russia is visible just 2.4 miles away across the Bering Strait. On clear days, you can literally see Russia from American soil. The international dateline runs between them, two countries, separated by a short swim and 21 hours of time difference. Coming in at number 4, the North Pole is United States territory. We planted a flag there, we explore it. American submarines surface there. Obviously it's ours. America claims Arctic territory, but international law treats the North Pole differently than people realize, and America doesn't own what they think. No country owns the North Pole. It's covered by constantly shifting sea ice floating on international waters. Countries can claim economic zones nearby, but the pole itself belongs to nobody. Not America, not Russia, not Canada. The top of the world remains unclaimed, neutral, belonging to no nation. At number 3, Death Valley is below sea level everywhere. The whole valley sits in a depression, entire thing below sea level. That's why it's so hot, so brutal. Heat gets trapped below sea level. The entire valley is a below sea level death trap. Except most of Death Valley rises above the ocean. Only Badwater Basin and the surrounding areas are below sea level, with the lowest point at -282 feet. Much of Death Valley sits above sea level. The valley has elevation changes, hills, mountains nearby. Below sea level is the famous part, but not the whole valley. Death Valley has variety. Number 2 is about American history. The Mason-Dixon line separates North and South. Civil War divisions, cultural boundaries, Yankees and rebels. The line that split America, everyone learns this. History books emphasize it. except the Mason-Dixon line was drawn for completely different reasons, long before the Civil War. The Mason-Dixon line actually separates Pennsylvania from Maryland and Delaware. It was drawn to resolve a colonial border dispute in the 1760s. Only later did it become associated with north-south divisions. The line existed for practical property reasons first, symbolic reasons second, history layered meaning onto geography afterward, and finally, at number 1, the biggest Alaska misconception of them all. All of Alaska is in the Arctic Circle. It's the Arctic state, frozen tundra, polar bears, endless ice. Everything about Alaska screams Arctic. The entire state must be above the Arctic Circle. This assumption feels completely natural and totally correct. Only about 1/3 of Alaska lies north of the Arctic Circle. Most of Alaska, including major cities like Anchorage and the capital Juneau, sits below the Arctic Circle. Juneau is at roughly the same latitude as Edinburgh, Scotland. Alaska isn't the frozen wasteland everyone pictures. Most of it is surprisingly southern by Arctic standards, and everything you thought you knew about American geography just got turned completely upside down.